But then what? Van Jefferson? Tyler Higbee? I saw Tyler Higbee working at Ralph's 2 weeks ago. He helped me bring out a beer over the self-checkout. I mean, what the heck is going on here? Tyler Higbee? I mean, seriously, put Logan Thomas and Tyler Higbee next to each other. Throw them both 100 balls. See what happens. How you doing, man?
Doing great. Riding the waves, son.
Yes, sir. It feels a little lonely on here. It's just, just the two of us. We gotta shout out our good friend Lou Holder for coming on the podcast last week. Thank you so much. You saw the numbers. You saw what it did. The people loved it. Lou, you crushed it. We look forward to having you back on, hopefully sometime soon. We really enjoyed having you. And guys, if you're here from the Lou episode, we got about 80 episodes to catch up on. Go back, check it out, and don't forget, like and subscribe, and drop some comments on the old episodes. We still check them. So go get caught up, come back, enjoy this week's episode. Today, our main topic. We're going to talk a little bit of whiz later, but right now our main topic is the NFL and the national media sleeping on the Commanders. That's our main topic for the day today. So Pop did a great job, broke us down some power rankings, broke us down all kinds of different position group rankings. So we got tons of stuff to get through today. Be super fun. You can tell, spoiler alert, I'm wearing my Ashburn syndrome shirt. We're going to see just how bad of a case we both have here. So, Pop, overall, like before we get into the rankings, what's your general consensus on the national media in relation to the Commanders? Do you think they're sleeping on the Commanders? Do you think they're giving us enough credit? What do you think?
You got to go sleeping. I mean,
That's fair.
As we go through these rankings, both from a team perspective and position group perspective, you can't help but think that they're sleeping on the potential there. And I've got some further comments on that as we get into it. But I got to lean sleeping for sure.
I respect it. So I was ready to come on here and tell you that they're not sleeping on the Commanders until I saw some of these position group rankings. And now I do think it's so odd. In some places, I think we're properly rated. In some places, I think we're overrated. In some places, I think they're sleeping on us. I think as a whole, the national media has it about right in terms of win total, what we should expect out of this team. Because, look, we can talk about the talent. We can talk about the change in coaching. We can talk about all these different things. But at the end of the day, let's look historically across the NFL. When you have an ownership change, a fifth-round rookie quarterback starting, and a new offensive system, how often do we see in that next season a really world-burning, NFL-changing team, or do we see somebody land right around that 500 mark, maybe a little bit south of that? That's why I think overall, I think they've got us about right, because it's a lot to overcome and a lot to change in one season. But let's get into these positions. What do you think?
So let's talk. You're going to talk a little bit about the team ranking first. Going to go in order here.
Sure. Yeah. So let's go team ranking first. I like that. So PFF. I know the people don't see the outline, but we gotta start at the top and work our way down. So generally,
my son gets a little juice sometimes. He gets a little juice. He skips ahead, and then he, compliments me on the detailed outline. But then
I'm an improviser, man.
Did you have espresso this morning? You good?
I did. Too much. I did, as always. Had way above the FDA approved limit. But we got PFF. It's got us ranked at 22nd. ESPN has us ranked at 24th. And NFL Network kicks 30th.
Yeah, rough.
That's tough. So I think 30th is a little harsh. I think that 22 to 24 range is fair. I think it's fair. I don't necessarily think it's where we land, but I think it's fair. What do you think, Pop? How do you feel about it? And obviously, Eagles towards the top of the rankings, Cowboys top 10 as well, Giants flirting with top 10 in some of the rankings, but up there. We're the worst of the NFC East is where the whole national media has us. So what do you feel about that?
Well, here's what I feel. And I think another maybe worth data point worth mentioning, which is that more or less seems like 6.5 wins is the Vegas total. We started
Yeah.
this time last year; it was 7.5. And here's my thing: in what world you look at this team that finished 500 last year, 8-1, and what world do you not think? As much as the biggest question mark on this team is probably quarterback. In what world? There's no world for me where we haven't upgraded over Taylor Heineke, which was our best quarterback last year. I may not be confident Sam Howell is going to be the franchise guy for the future long term. We'll see. But I have absolutely no doubt he's going to be better than Taylor Heineke. No doubt. There's
Yeah.
no doubt in my. I've seen enough, right? So I don't understand how we go 8-1. And to be honest with you, if not for just an absolute debacle in those back-to-back games against the Giants, that why we would have fallen back in terms of where we're ranked or where we rated or where people think the potential is. It's nothing more than what the reputation of the team has been over many, many years. There's just a lack of trust. And I get that. I get it. But I also kind of look at, you said, Giants are rated anywhere between 13 to 17. Could we catch the Giants this year? What have they done that's just overly impressive in this offseason? Their draft hasn't been great. They're riding with Daniel
Added Darren.
Jones.
They added Darren Waller at tight end.
Okay, good weapon. Good weapon. But you can,
I'm not impressed by Darren
well,
Waller.
we talked about it last week, right? Lou talked about it. We added Eric Bieniemy.
There you go.
And
There
then
you
we
go.
added a couple studs to secondary. That defense is I don't know how you go from a consensus top 5 defense in most of the ratings, but then 30th ranked team. It doesn't
Yeah,
really
it's
add
tough.
up to me. This whole thing doesn't add up. I'm not saying we're going to light the world on fire. I'm not saying I think it's going to be a whole lot better than 8-1, but the disrespect of being 20th to 30 something, I don't get it. It doesn't add up to me. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I've seen counter somebody for on Sports Illustrated said he thought that we sneakily could win the NFC East. I think that guy's going a little bit overboard, but he did say, and I'll test this statement with you. He said he thinks it's the most talented roster that I almost said Redskins, man, the Commanders have had in the last 10 plus years.
I agree. I agree. I think there is a lot of talent on this team, top to bottom. I think you look at adding Emmanuel Forbes in that secondary, and it just, we bolstered up a lot of our more weakened positions. The problem is this team is kind of built like a Madden franchise team. Like, there's really good wide receivers, there's good corners, there's good running backs, and we don't have any offensive line. We got some good pass rushers. So that's where it gets hard. And I think, again, you look at that 30th ranking, you look at that 24th ranking, you look at that 22nd ranking from these bigger outlets that are not as familiar with the talent that we have. Because unfortunately, when you're loaded at the wide receiver position, if you don't have a great quarterback to showcase that, it doesn't show up on the stats when you look at it, right? So these guys are looking at that, and then they're looking at new owner, rookie quarterback that outside of DC, a lot of people really don't know who Sam Howell is. You're looking at changing coaching. You're looking at Rivera in his career long tenure has always kind of been this 500 guy. And it makes sense. I understand why they land here. I don't necessarily agree. I think we maybe are closer to that 17 that ESPN has the Giants ranked at. I think that might be a more sound place for us just off the top of my head. But it's tough. There's 32 teams in the NFL. Somebody's got to be on the bottom end of it, and there's a lot of talent across the league. It is hard when you
But you
really
don't
break
think
it
we can
down.
catch the Giants? I mean, we were that close last year.
I think we could. I
You
think
could
we could.
argue we should have finished ahead of them last year. And so that puts
Yeah.
us in that top 15 grouping. And I think that's a reasonable thought. Not saying it's going to
Yeah.
happen, but I think it's a reasonable thought.
So the Giants played the kind of football that we tried to play last year. They played that like mistake-free, very basic, vanilla, run the football, keep it simple, take what your opponent gives you. They played that kind of football, and they just They played it better than we did, and that's why they beat us. But you figure that has room to regress a little bit. So I think the Giants maybe take half a step back, we take half a step forward. All of a sudden, we've caught the Giants,
Did
right? I don't
anybody
think
in
it's
the
that
NFC East,
unrealistic.
and maybe you are, I'll argue we got better because I think we got better at quarterback. I don't think there's any doubt
Yeah,
in my mind. The most important position, we got significantly better, in my opinion. We've added people through the draft. We got better in coaching. Has any other NFC East teams gotten significantly better in your mind? Some might argue
I
they
think
lost some pretty important pieces across the board.
I think Philly got a lot better. I think
They lost
Dallas.
some. They lost some folks too.
They also added Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith in the first round of the draft. I think Philly is. I don't think Philly got any worse, and they were able to keep Darius Slay. They did lose C.J. Gardner Johnson, but I think Philly got a lot better. I think the Cowboys on paper got better, but I do predict that they're going to take a step back. I just don't believe in McCarthy's offense. But I don't think the Giants. I mean, they added Darren Waller, which is great. He hasn't been able to stay on the field in 2 seasons. I don't think the Giants got much better, if any better, and especially with the Saquon situation. If he's not playing next year, the Giants could be picking in the top 5. I think they could really bottom out. They need him. They need the threat of Saquon, even if he's not getting the ball. They need the threat of that to get their offense moving. So, enough on this NFC East breakdown. Let's get into these positions. What do you say,
Let's
Pop?
do it.
So, running back group rankings. Let's start there. Speaking of Saquon, they have us at 27th. 27th. Now, I have a theory on why they have us at 27th, but they have us at 27th. Pop, I'll let you react to that first before I give you my theory.
It's shocking to see. It's shocking to see, and I'm interested in hearing your theory. I'm not going to steal your thunder. I'm going to let you go first on that. I have a theory as well.
I think it's
Um,
probably the same theory.
but yeah, it's shocking to see. Um, but anyway, why don't you comment on your theory?
Scott Turner. That's my theory. That's why I think we're 27th in running back
Different
rankings.
than
I think
mine.
again, there you go. I think you look at it's a combination of factors, right? Brian Robinson Jr., obviously, third round guy, not highly touted. We love him here, super talented. I'm talking national perspective, not somebody that you're looking at like a Bijan Robinson, right? Antonio Gibson, super talented coming out of college. A lot of people liked him, hasn't really performed up to the level that people had expected. I mean, they were comparing this guy to Jonathan Taylor in terms of athletic ability coming out of college, and look at the delta there. But I think the fault of that is Scott Turner, because if you look at when we were running the ball and why we were running the ball last year, aside from when Ron pulled Scott aside and said, we don't start running the football, I'm going to fire you in the middle of the season. That's not what he said, but that's what we hypothesized, right? Aside from that little stretch of time, we're running the ball in such low percentage situations. First and 10, incomplete, second and 10, handoff inside. We were not committed to the run. We weren't sticking to the run. And we were playing from behind most of last year, which means you got to air the ball out. You don't have a choice. So I think, again, you look at the numbers on the piece of paper, and it probably makes sense to put us there. Talent wise, I don't think we're that far down. I don't think we're in the top half of the league. I think we're maybe right a little bit like in that 16 to 18 range, maybe just outside of the top half. But I mean, yeah, I understand why that 27 is there. That's my theory.
Yeah, I think it's, to me, the reason Scott Turner. Who's that? He's so far out of my
I
mind.
don't know. It's some guy.
But no, I mean, I think that's it. I think you got to look at the top dog on every team, and even if you take, say, a Pittsburgh Steelers who's 25th, and you look at a Najee Harris who's rushed for 2,200 yards, and I just don't think we have a proven entity as that back now.
Yeah.
Can Brian Robinson be that guy? I love the combination, of him and Gibson. I think AG, he was my breakout player prediction of the year, but I'm not as upset at this one as I might be on some of the ones coming up. I think 27's totally disrespectful. But I think if you look at top dog for a lot of these teams, which I think heavily weighs this running back picture, you might be able to somewhat understand it a little bit more. But it's shocking when you see it. because I think in general this is an example of our perception versus national media in terms of like the local media and the local fan base. We think running backs is a position of strength with this team,
Yeah.
and so it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note too, just because you can run the ball well doesn't necessarily mean you have a great running back room. And I mean, when I just look down really quickly here, you look at number 14, the New York Jets, they have Brees Hall and Michael Carter. You saw what Brees Hall did last year, lit the world on fire. That's 14. 15, not even halfway. Or let's look at the halfway mark. Number 16 with the Detroit Lions, Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery. Do we have a running back on our roster better than both of those guys? It's hard to say we
Not
do,
proven.
really.
Not proven.
Not proven. Not
Yeah.
proven. We've seen in flashes. We've seen in flashes. We saw
Yeah.
Gibson on Thanksgiving a couple of years ago, but we not consistent. Even 18 New England Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson. You got a guy at that talent level at 18, and 27 starts to make a little more sense. Let's move on. Next up, we're going to do our quarterback rankings. We got Sam Howell at number 27. Pop, how do you feel about that?
I think it's reasonable, right?
Yeah.
Behind Inside Baseball, I did write down 23rd on the sheet. That was a typo. I know that's not right, but
You're gonna
no,
make me edit and then snitch on yourself. Come
I
on,
got
Pop.
snitch, but you still got it. No, I think that's reasonable, right? I think if anything, I wouldn't expect a high ranking because again, it's another one of those unproven situations. I mean, I guess I was just relieved. I was kind of reading this from the bottom up, and I started seeing like Colt McCoy in there at 29th. I was like, he better be ahead of Colt McCoy. So I was just relieved about that, but
Yeah.
can't really argue with this one yet.
Yeah, it's a tough. I mean, you look at him, you compare him to another guy, a guy that was actually drafted ahead of him and played more NFL football last year, Desmond Ritter, sitting there at 31. So they've got Sam Howell at 27. I mean, they just kind of repeated the same stuff that we've said. He completed 11 of 19 passes for 168 yards and a touchdown while rushing for 35 yards and another score. Howell was seen as a legitimate prospect before sliding all the way down to the fifth round of the 2022 NFL draft. But expecting anything above this would be wildly optimistic. And I think that encapsulates it all. You look at him compared to a guy like Jordan Love, who the Packers took in the first round a few years ago. I think he's right in that pocket of like Bryce Young at 25, Jimmy Garoppolo in a new situation at 24, Brock Purdy in 23 in San Francisco. He's right in that pocket of guys that like maybe they'll be good, but there's no reason to 100% guarantee so far that they're going to be there. So I actually think 27 it's a little
Fair.
more friendly than I've seen across the board. Let's get on.
Fair, and hopefully he climbs that. At the end of the season, we're talking about a much different rating, but
definitely
can't
definitely,
argue with that right
now. I mean, it's time will tell. That's really what it comes down to. So let's go positive. And then we're gonna swing back and hit the ending negative. Positive. Defensive rankings. PFN has us at 4th, I believe. Double checking the article here.
You don't trust me now. Yes.
No. Now I got to click on all the links. It's got us a 4th. They highlighted they finished 7th in points last year, 5th in EPA per play. But they're not considered a high-level defense. They should be. They added to the secondary, and they have a capable safety in Cameron Curl. Fantastic interior play and should have high-level edge play, even if Chase Young isn't completely healthy for the entire season. Pop, what do you think about that as a whole there?
No argument.
Yeah, me neither.
Gotta love. The defense is getting a lot of love, and I kind of cycle back to why are we rated so low from an overall team perspective. But, I think PFF has our D-line at 3rd, which kind of complements that PFN ranking. So no argument there. You can't get too upset about that. I'm not going to be that guy wearing the Ashburn syndrome shirt that's pounding the table saying we should be number 1. Top 5 defense, you got to be happy with that. Let's hope they can actually execute and build off last year versus regress, which has been a little bit of a trend lately, on year, off year, on year, off year. let's hope it's a build off what we did last year.
Yeah, you just look across the NFL, and I think it's incredibly difficult to sustain high-level defensive performances year over year over year. I mean, you give these offensive coordinators a whole year of tape, a whole offseason to look at what you're planning on doing. It's easy to start seeing guys kind of come up and down a little bit. Obviously, Washington has been no exception to that. We've been going up and down as well. So we had great year in 2020, great last
Very
third
good.
of the year
Yeah.
in 2020. The beginning of 2020, we sucked, but we figured it out towards the end. Then terrible defense the next year, okay defense at the beginning of the year, and then terrible at the end, or great at the end. We'll see if we can sustain it for a whole season. I think hopefully a little bit of complementary football, a little bit of help from the offense, even if the offense just steps up a smidge, that might make the defense be able to perform, because you look at some of the other highly rated defenses like the 49ers and the Cowboys, they've got great offenses. They've got fresh legs when they're out there because
You
the
want to see
offense has been
more,
out
I
there for
think,
6 minutes.
for this defense to take another step and to really make a difference is exactly that. We want to see more playmaking out of the defense, right? I think, defense actually, performed well, but there were times where they could have got the other team off the field in critical moments and they couldn't do it. So you want to just see them be that difference-making defense at times, or more important times than they were last year. That would be a step up to me.
Yep. Yeah, I agree, and we shall see. Another group, the New York Jets, ranked number 1 in that article, which I think is a little bit of a surprise considering the 49ers are there, but I guess they're also projecting they'll get some offensive help as well, and then defense steps forward. So look for us to be right there with it. Let's move on. We have defensive line rankings. This one's quick. It ties in. We're ranked 3rd. I think, again, super fair. I think that's right where we should be. You look across the NFL, I don't think there are many teams that have the edge talent combined with the interior talent. I think we probably have the best interior defensive line in football, personally.
I agree with that.
I know the Jets are very highly ranked there too, but I love our interior defensive line there. You got anything to say on that, or should we move on, hit the wide receivers?
I'm good.
All right. Let's start with the good. Terry McLaurin, number 8. We had a long debate last offseason. Is Terry McLaurin a top 10 wide receiver? Clearly is. Continues to perform year in and year out. Pop was right. He's ranked at number 8. He also left Justin Jefferson out of his top 10 last year. So we got to.
You and our beloved Ravens insider were a little bit disrespectful to Terry.
Some of the guys that we had above Terry regressed, and Terry was able to take that next step forward.
As I predicted.
So you were right. So Terry at number 8, I think, is super fair. You look around guys like Deebo Samuel, CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown. I think that's right in the class of wide receivers that he belongs in. And I think all those guys have had significantly better offenses, significantly better quarterback play. I think, honestly, talent-wise, you give Terry Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, even what Justin Jefferson has to work with. I'm not saying he's going to be Justin Jefferson, but I'm saying maybe he starts to dance around with Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp at that 5-6 spot, right? I think he has that ability. I just want to see.
You took my whole argument from last year.
I got another year of proof. I want to see Bieniemy do the thing, and let's see if we can get Terry working a little bit better. Now, our kickouts of the week, our unofficial, official kickouts of the week, right? The wide receiver group rankings. Pro Football Focus has us at 19. 19. Can you believe that, Pop?
It's crazy. I think I'm going to let you rant on this one. They got the Baltimore Ravens ranked at 15th. Notoriously one of the weakest wide receiver groups. Just because they signed Odell Beckham?
Zay Flowers is exciting. I think he's Jahan Dotson-esque. But, oh my God, Odell Beckham Jr. is 96 years old.
That's gotta hurt.
Guy, there's no way. That's insane.
Steelers with Deontay Johnson and George Pickens I couldn't pick those guys out of a lineup.
Mark Andrews is great. He's a tight end. That's another thing. They're including tight ends in this, which I think is BS. But whatever. I mean, we look at number 1, Cincinnati, number 2, Philadelphia, number 3, Miami, number 4, San Francisco. I don't think I could argue with those 4. Number 5, Seattle Seahawks with DK, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. Now I think we're right here. This is where I would put us.
How do you go
Right
Terry at 8? And as high as everybody is, Jahan Dotson as a number 2, people are even talking about him maybe threatening Terry as being like a co-number 1. How do you drop from 8 to 19? It makes no sense.
So this is the group I believe we're in. You have the Seahawks at 5, the Cowboys at 6, the Vikings at 7, the Raiders at 8. I think we're right in this pool, personally. I think you look at
I think greater than Cowboys, personally.
Yeah, I think we're right between. I would put us between the Seahawks and the Cowboys, personally. Brandon Cooks, I'm not as high on him as everybody is. He's pretty old, and I know he's fast, but he's lost a step. He's pretty old. Michael Gallup is just a guy. Dalton Schultz is not in town anymore. CeeDee Lamb is great, but we've seen what happens when CeeDee Lamb is the only wide receiver on the field. They can't move the ball. And so I'm not
Terry greater than CeeDee
blown
Lamb.
away. And that's PFF. That's not us. That's PFF. They had
Right.
Terry at 8, CeeDee Lamb at 9. I don't know if I agree with that, but that's PFF. It is crazy to me. And even you look at the Minnesota Vikings, Justin Jefferson is incredible.
But right? Son, I got to stop for a second because my blood's boiling a little bit. What have you seen from CeeDee Lamb, honestly, other than the hype and the name and the occasional flash, the drops that he has, the disappearance act that he has during games? What have you seen that makes him better than Terry McLaurin? There's no freaking way.
No,
consistency-wise. There's no way that you would rather that guy on your team than Terry McLaurin. And I know I'm a homer. But come at me with that.
A little bit.
Come at me with the comments.
I think they're right here. I think CeeDee's had the better quarterback play. It's really hard to decide. CeeDee's got a little more size, a little more physical. It's tough, man. It's a really, like I said, I think they're right. I think they're right here. It's hard. It's hard to pick. It's close. It's really, really, really close. I'm a CeeDee Lamb believer. I also love Terry. Terry's my favorite for sure. And it's tough. But we're getting a little left of center.
Disrespectful.
Getting a little left of center. Pop having his Stephen A. moment here. I love it. But it's just insane. If you look at some of the other teams that were grouped around, I mean, the Los Angeles Rams are ahead of us. Who the hell is on the Los Angeles Rams other than Cooper Kupp?
That's it.
Cooper Kupp is great.
Kupp
Cooper Kupp gets 20 targets a game. Give Terry McLaurin 20 targets a game. Then what?
Again, my argument. Put him on the Rams, you wouldn't notice much difference.
Then what? Van Jefferson? Tyler Higbee? I saw Tyler Higbee working at Ralph's 2 weeks ago. He helped me bring out a beer over the self-checkout. I mean, what the heck is going on here? Tyler Higbee? I mean, seriously, put Logan Thomas and Tyler Higbee next to each other. Throw them both 100 balls. See what happens. It's going to be the same numbers. Tyler Higbee is the guy that one guy in your fantasy league drafts every year. And he goes, I'm telling you, man, he's going to break out. And every year, that guy is playing for last place. That is ridiculous. And then you got the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think should be higher, frankly. But I don't think, Calvin Ridley coming off of 2 years of not playing football. Christian Kirk, everybody made fun of him. They said he ruined the wide receiver market when he went to Jacksonville and got paid what he got paid. This was the third wide receiver on the Arizona Cardinals 2 years ago, one of the worst teams in football. Third wide receiver. I know 2 years ago they were good, but they stunk on the back half of the year. And Christian Kirk he's not all that. Evan Ingram, good back end of the season. But this is crazy.
I agree.
Crazy. This is nuts. Denver Broncos, Cortland Sutton was a witness protection program. I drafted him in every fantasy league last year. Witness protection program the whole year. witness protection program. Jerry Jeudy can't play more than 4 games without getting hurt. It's ridiculous. Tim Patrick and Greg Dulcich. Again, Greg Dulcich is Tyler Higbee's manager over at Ralph's. It's nuts. It is nuts. It's insane. I understand Jahan missed 6 games last year. I understand. Guess what? That happens to wide receivers. They have soft tissue injuries. It's very common. Did you look at the games that he played?
Yeah,
Did you
and
look at his
Curtis. I
numbers
mean, we
mixing
haven't
six
even
games?
mentioned Curtis Samuel yet. So
Speaking of
it's crazy.
speaking of Ralph's employees, Carson Wentz was throwing these guys the football. It's insane. It's insane. It's nuts. I can't get my head around it. And the rest of the list is just wonky because you have the Jets down at 20, you have the Browns at 22, the Saints at 21. I really don't know who made this list.
Yeah,
This is insane. This is one of the worst lists I've ever seen in my life. This is just terrible. Yeah, I can't believe it. So unofficial kickouts of the week, gotta go to that wide receiver group rankings. That's terrible. I think, without a doubt, we are in that top 10. And this is just a piss poor reflection of the national media not having any idea what actual talent looks like and just looking at numbers and not factoring in that we had a guy that was living on his sister's couch 2 years ago playing quarterback.
yeah.
That's where I'm at with that. Nuts. Let's get into the Wizards. Let's do a quick Italians talking NBA to wrap this thing up. Bring some laughs in here. Let's get into it. We got a lot of big moves.
Why don't
A
you
lot
just
of
run
big
through the
moves.
changes because we don't have time to go through each one of these one at a time. You run through the changes, and then we'll each kind of comment in general how we feel about all this.
I love that. That's
Okay.
exactly what I was just about to do.
All right.
Exactly what I was just about to do. We're going to do lightning round. So out, gone. Bradley Beal going to Phoenix. Kristaps Porzingis, Tingus Pingus back on the Knicks. Monty Morris going to the Pistons. In, we got Jordan Poole from Golden State. Tyus Jones, forgot to mention, out Chris Paul, one of the greatest Wizards of all time. I don't know what I'm going to do with my Chris Paul jersey. It's okay. He's gone as well. Drafted Bilal Koulibaly from France. He was Victor Wembanyama's teammate. We also got Tristan Vucevic, the next Nikola Jokic, 6'11", skilled big man out of Serbia. We brought back, this was the biggest shock. Brought back Kyle Kuzma. That to me was the biggest surprise. So it's looking like next year our starting lineup looking like Jones, Poole, Advia, Kuzma, Gafford. And then coming off the bench, Koulibaly, Wright, Kispert. It's not a world-burning team, but I don't think we're also tanking the way we used to tank. Personally,
I agree. No, I mean I'm generally anti-tank, but I'll jump in here and kind of give my take of the situation. I love it. The Kuzma news was a shocker, right? We thought he was gone. But if you think about it for a minute, just stop and think about it, it's incredibly smart. To let him walk without getting anything back from him. He obviously wanted to be here. He's a really good player. I don't think him and Beal coexisted very well.
yeah,
I just felt watching the games, there was some body language things going on there. But I kind of feel like every time he shined, in a way, it was something that was taken away from Brad being the top dog on the team. Now he's got an opportunity with Poole to really be that star, maybe bump his. He went from 17 points per game up to 21 points per game last year, so he's rising in his talent. He can rebound. He can hit clutch threes. I've always loved Kuz as a player, and of the big three, he's the one I would have wanted back. Plus, you have that asset.
definitely.
And at $25 million a year, he's a very tradable asset. That's not a bad contract for a guy of his
Yeah,
skill set. And there are going to be teams tempted at the deadline to want him. Not that I hope that's the way it goes, but with 4 years on his contract, he's a trade asset at the very least
yeah,
quite some time for this team. Incredibly smart offseason move. Generally, you got to be pleased, I think, with what they've done. I mean, Jordan Poole, you look at his stats versus Beals, is that big of a drop off, especially if you compare contracts and age, right?
And volume. And volume. Poole is the third or fourth option on that team, depending on the night. If Poole with Beal's volume, I think he's going to look just like Brad out there, frankly. Um, Brad's gone. We're happy about that. It was just never going to work here.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your time. There was a long stretch where he was a class act. He was always a class act, but there was a long stretch where he represented DC well. He clearly wanted to be here. He was competing. You could tell the last couple of years that wasn't really the case anymore. So happy to move on there. Wish him the best in Phoenix. I think I agree with you. My quick, I'm going to try and keep this super brief. My quick take on this: you've got Kuzma here. It's just a win-win situation because we drafted the lowest floor, highest ceiling talent in the draft in Koulibaly, and as well as Vucevic as well could be that too. If you look at his skill set and you look at his highlights and some of his even just single game highlights, it's like, whoa, who is this guy, right? Granted, he's playing in Serbia, but if either one of these guys pans out to be a superstar in 2 years, they have that Giannis-like glow up, which we know 1% chance of happening, right? But let's say it does. Now all of a sudden you've got Poole and Kuzma with them. Now you've got a championship contending team. It sounds crazy, but that's how it works. And if not, like you said,
what's the equivalent of Ashburn syndrome for the Wiz?
I don't know.
Chinatown syndrome?
Yeah, but you can't say that. I don't know.
Why not? Anyway.
It's about DC, but you got to get that into the wrong people's ears. I think at the end of the day, if they don't pan out and they suck, like you said, very tradable contract. And if they don't pan out, that means Kuzma's going to be getting a lot of volume. His numbers are going to look great. We deal him, and the tank is on again, baby. No problem.
Poole's in a similar boat, right? He's a guy that's a very tradable asset as well. So you have the opportunity. And the other thing, this is one of the best points I heard on the radio. The 2024 draft class is not great. Like, people are projecting like the next great draft classes in 2027.
Yeah.
Now who knows? We don't know what these college players are going to look like, and these younger kids are going to look like. And I'm sure people will emerge, and I'm sure it might be a much better class. But, to me, good young talent, it always makes sense to add good young talent to your team. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And hey, they're projecting Bronny James right around that 18 slot. I think we're going to draft higher than that next year. So we could always, we want to make the run for the chip. Always get Bronny. LeBron going to come follow. Let's go, baby. LeBron in DC, he can finish out just like Jordan did as a Wizard. Oh, man. All right, I think we wrap this thing up. There's not much more concrete news. I mean, there's a couple rumors swirling around, but nothing finalized at the moment. It has been a great episode, been a lot of fun. A little bit of serious banter here. Pop brought the heat on my CD Lamb take. I love Terry. I don't want you guys to get that wrong. I love that guy. I love him. But it's like I said, it's like this. Every week it changes. That's just where I'm at this week. But without further ado, let's wrap this thing up. I've been Dom.
This is Pop.
Love me, baby. Oh.